Okay, Top, so we've discussed haircuts and laundry on Chol HaMoed, and we want to go into all the different kinds of heterim when a person is allowed to do work on Chol HaMoed, but a few minor details before doing so. Let's talk today about all issues of cars and transport on the Moed. So, of course, on Shabbat and Yom Tov, driving a car or getting onto the train is not allowed. On the Moed, however, this would be classified as Melechet Hediot Litzorech HaMoed. This is a regular, unprofessional, day-to-day activity, and it's for the purposes of the Moed. So to get in your car to go to synagogue, to get in your car to go to do shopping, to go in the car to go on a trip, all of that is Melechet Hediot Litzorech HaMoed, and therefore it's all permissible to do so on Chol HaMoed, including taking a bus, taking a train, taking a taxi. All of these things are all permissible to be done. However, it has to be letzorich hamoed, that you're driving for the purposes of the moed. When would you be driving not for the purpose of the moed? Surely, if you're driving, you're not just randomly driving for no reason. Yes, it is possible if you're doing driving lessons. So taking driving lessons on Chol HaMoed seemingly would be asur, because the purpose of the driving lesson is to prepare yourself for a driving test in the future. And as such, although it's a melechet hediot, it's not litzorech hamoed, and thus arguably it would not be allowed. And indeed, of melamed is posek like this, it would not be allowed to have driving lessons on chol hamoed, because this is not for the purposes of the moed. Now, if someone argues and says, "Look, I am taking the driving lessons for my driving test in a few weeks' time, but I get immense pleasure from being able to take my driving lesson now, and therefore this is actually it's a tiyul, it's actually part of my enjoyment of Chol HaMoed, and therefore I'm getting immediate purpose now. It's not just I'm doing the driving lessons in order to be able to prepare for my test. Of course I am doing that, but I'm doing it also because I want to enjoy, and this is, I love taking my driving lessons. So that's an argument, and that's, if that indeed is how a person feels, then there is room to say that it would be permissible even to do it for after the for take a driving test after the med, because yes, there's two intentions, but one of them is for now. I want to enjoy myself by having the driving lesson. And the person has to be honest with themselves and decide whether that's the case or not. So that's with regards to taking driving lessons. There would be a circumstance in which it would be permissible definitely to take driving lessons. That would be if it would be davar ha'aved, if I don't take it. So for example, I made a lesson in advance, and then I realized on it's Chol HaMoed, and now to cancel, I'm going to lose the money for the driving lesson. Something like that would be davar ha'aved. It's something which is at a loss, and then a person could take it. But one shouldn't intentionally schedule a driving lesson for Chol HaMoed. Or alternatively, a person has a driving test a week after Pesach, after Sukkot, and they realize if they don't do a couple of driving lessons during Chol HaMoed, they're not going to be able to pass the test, and they're going to fail the test, and that's going to be davar ha'aved. So again, in a circumstance like that, and again, all of this, a person has to be honest with themselves. But the basic principle is that driving is permissible, all kinds of transport are permissible on the Moed, but it has to be for the purposes of the Moed. And if a person is purely doing something on the in the car for practicing for a test after the Moed, that would not be allowed unless A, it's a davar ha'aved in the circumstances we've explained, or B, a person argues and says that they're getting immediate pleasure and immediate enjoyment from doing the driving lesson now on the Moed. Now, what about cleaning one's car and also fixing one's car? So let's start with cleaning one's car. So cleaning one's car, um, if it's a full-on wash, most people don't do full-on car washes every week. So therefore, why are you scheduling the car wash on Chol HaMoed? So therefore, that seemingly would not be correct to do. Of course, if there's dirt on your windscreen, you want to clear the windscreen, of course that's allowed. We're talking about a full-on car wash, polish for the car. That's not something which is done, at least in my experience, on a weekly basis. And therefore, it would arguably be something which you can postpone, and there's no reason to fix it, like we discussed in the past about doing dentist appointments, orthodontic appointments, which are not immediate. Why schedule it for Chol HaMoed? Seemingly, that wouldn't be right to do the car wash on Chol HaMoed. Although, if you went on a trip and the car became extremely dirty and now it's full of dirt and you want to clean it, of course that would be permissible because that arose, that came up after the Chag began, so that would be permissible. So we've talked about driving lessons, we've talked about cleaning one's car. Tomorrow we'll talk about some more details, specifically with fixing cars.